What is up, and welcome back to Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. As always, I am your host, Brandon Silvers, talking WNBA award season today. So you know I had to bring a very special guest back on. You've seen him on the show before. He's still doing all the things over at the 9450. Catch him writing for the local W and also producing the Step Back with Miles and Owen. Once again, welcome back, Kevin K. Lewis. K. What is going on, man?
Hey, what up? What it is? What's popping? Everything's all good. Thanks, Brandon, for having me on again. And it's always a pleasure to be on the show. I am just excited to talk award season, maybe sprinkling a little bit of playoffs, man. I'm just excited to chop it up with you once again. You're doing such a great job and continue to push the envelope and do your thing. I love your content.
Man, I appreciate it. I'm trying to keep up with you. But no, well, you were on for the draft preview. Kind of full circle moment here. Earlier today, it was officially announced, the worst kept secret in sports media probably. Caitlin Clark, Rookie of the Year. She got every vote except for one. Initial thoughts when you heard the news, particularly the vote, since we've kind of known the news for a little bit here.
Yeah, so, I reported on Saturday that it was pretty much official, but they didn't make it official until today. But what was funny about the lone or singular vote for Angel Reese is, to be honest with you, I wasn't too surprised. A lot of people anticipated a unanimous vote, but with the way that Angel Reese had played, especially in the month of June, it was undeniable, and I almost had a feeling that somebody was going to vote for Angel Reese for Rookie of the Year. And you have to think about it from this standpoint, too. If Angel Reese gets a vote for MVP, that same vote or, someone of a similar mindset was going to call out, not MVP, Rookie of the Year for Angel Reese. So, my initial thoughts, of course, it was obvious that Caitlin Clark was going to be Rookie of the Year. Very deserving of it, especially after the Olympic break. But of course, there was some slight, for me, I think there was some slight hesitation about being unanimous. I wasn't going to be upset if Caitlin Clark wasn't unanimous. She wasn't unanimous. So obviously I'm not upset about that, but I respect what the voters voted on. So, congratulations to Caitlin Clark. She had been phenomenal throughout the season, weathering that storm, 11 games in 20 days, her first 11 games, going 1-8. To start off, but then, finishing the season at 20-20. We predicted, I think I was on your show when I said that at the time, I think I predicted 21 wins. They could get up to 21 and they got 20 wins. So, I wasn't too far off. So kudos to you for asking that question because, it really set off, a great and incredible rookie year for Caitlin Clark.
Yeah, it was truly amazing. And like you said, we talked about it during the preview. There was going to be an adjustment period. There was an adjustment period. She figured it out. We figured she would. And it was just kind of a matter of how long it would take her, particularly post-Olympic break. Was she doing something different on the court, or was it just a matter of she's rested up now, or a little bit of column A, a little column B?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. She was fully rested. 3 weeks is a long time for an athlete. She was able to watch film, catch up with the WNBA. And she just did an amazing job just being who she truly is. That's just a remarkable playmaker, outstanding shooter, and just as much of an outstanding passer. So for Caitlin Clark, she really got it, to be honest with you, before the Olympic break. But once the Olympic break hit and afterwards, I mean, she was hitting the ground running, and you have to respect that, especially as a basketball enthusiast, and more importantly, as a reporter and an analyst, right? Because when we are looking at Caitlin Clark, we already knew the tangibles and intangibles that she had. We already knew this. It was a matter of can and how and when she was just going to be able to allow those abilities to allow it to transition into the WNBA. And right, like I said, in June, early July, you started seeing a little bit of that. And then you turn around right after the Olympic break, again, she hit the ground running. She had Indiana in one of the best records after the Olympic break. And, she was an incredible rookie this year. But I, also want to, give credit where credit is due to Angel Reese, because she did that as well before the wrist injury. So both of those rookies were outstanding. Rakia Jackson came on at the end as well. Outstanding. So it was, very, very good just to see the rookies shine. Right. So I think that from that standpoint, going back to Caitlin, she finally figured it out. And, it was in perfect timing.
1,000% agree. I don't really know what else can be said about her game that hasn't been said. Just a truly, truly incredible player. And you mentioned Angel Reese, and there's always noise on Twitter, unfortunately. But with her receiving a vote for Rookie of the Year, to me, and we're going to talk about this some later, spoiler alert, for someone to be unanimous something, in my opinion, it's got to be a wire-to-wire deal. Am I wrong for thinking at some point during the season, Angel Reese was actually the favorite to win Rookie of the Year?
You're not wrong, because I'm going to tell you something. In June, I said that she was Rookie of the Year. In June. And the reason why I had that revelation is because she was just doing all of the things that you would see a Rookie of the Year do for her team. And she had her team in a great position in the playoffs. This was before the trade with Marina Mabrey, and she did it after the trade with Marina Mabrey. So it wasn't far-fetched for people to look at the game and turn a blind eye to the whole narrative of how she's getting double-doubles, right? A double-double is a double-double. If she's doing that, stop it. That's just point blank, period. If you feel that she's doing it in that manner, stop it. And no one could stop it. So with that being said, again, I think that Coach Teresa Weatherspoon put that team in a great position to be what they were in. I think that even before the season, a lot of people had them in the bottom as a bottom feeder of the league. And at that particular time, they were the 7th seed. So I can't argue with anyone who thought that Angel Reese had she was actually the front runner in June. She was player of the month. She was player of the month. So my thing is with that is, at that particular time, yes, she was Rookie of the Year. I said she was Rookie of the Year when I had the conversation with Angel McCoughtry and Olivia Pope. Shout out to those two. The week before, Caitlin went off for that week. Literally. We said that Monday. Hey, Angel Reese looks good. She's my pick for Rookie of the Year. And then Caitlin just goes off and have that historical week where she had she went off with three or four straight games with 25 or more points, 5 or more assists, 5 or more rebounds. So, hadn't she not done that, we probably would have seen more votes for Rookie of the Year.
I mean, what she did as a 7th pick, and we talked about it again with the draft preview where there were limitations coming in, but she far exceeded my expectations. And the whole narrative around her rebounding and the misconception that she's only rebounding her misses, is funny to me because I know a lot of people who miss shots. A lot of players miss shots. I only know one who's rebounding like Angel Reese. So I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I'd rather have, if someone's going to miss shots, give me the person who's missing shots and getting rebounds, who's rebounding those misses and putting them back. And again, that narrative is way, way overblown.
Yeah, I agree for sure.
And just a couple of these other rookies for the all-rookie team, obviously Caitlin and Angel, Camila Cardoso, Leonie Fibich, and Rakia Jackson, who you mentioned as well. Any thoughts on those players, and who else do you think you would like to see some love? Because I feel like does the W only give first team? They don't give second team,
right? They only give first team for all rookie. So you know what? I gotta give flowers to Leonie Fibich. We have been raving about Leonie Fibich forever, to be honest with you. Mark Schindler and I in our draft preview show that he premiered on They Got Now, we talked about Leonie Fibich and how underrated the deal that really surrounded, if I'm not mistaken, I think her deal surrounded the first Marina Mabrey trade. Dallas to Chicago, and then sending Michaela Onyenwere to Phoenix, and then sending that pick to New York, which ended up being Leonie Fibich. And a big component of New York's success this year is indeed Leonie Fibich, and she is indeed also a potential candidate for Sixth Player of the Year. So I wrote a piece maybe about a month ago for the local W that read "The Fibich That Saved New York" with a question mark, and it was an ode to the old school movie "The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh." And
Dr.
shout out
J.
to Dr. J. So it was an ode to that movie because you could tell from the aura of which Leonie Fibich plays, her versatility, her defense, her timely shooting. It just brought some type of synergy to the New York Liberty. And now we see that the New York Liberty is the number one seed, the best team in the league this year, hands down. And they're on the verge of, making it to the finals with a commanding 2-0 lead in a 5-game series against the defending WNBA champions, right? And Leonie Fibich has a lot to do with that. And you have to give credit to what she's done on a bench role and also in a starting role. Obviously now during the playoffs, she started and she's doing great things. Like, listen, she is a plus 19 when she's on the floor. She is a minus 9 in 2 games of the playoffs when she's off of it. So Leonie Fibich has been an incredible rookie for the New York Liberty. And I want to give credit also to Camila Cardoso. For her to miss the first 6 to 8 weeks with a shoulder and then come in and do what she did for her rookie season to make the all-rookie team. Like, it was incredible. It was amazing. It was beautiful. In the words of my dear Kennedy, she always say, amazing, beautiful. So I want to give credit to those 2 rookies, even with us talking about Caitlin, Angel, and Rakia, because those 2 rookies have been phenomenal this year, and I have to give credit where credit is due.
The post-Olympic break for Camilla, before she re-injured her shoulder, she turned up. And something great about the pairing between her and Angel Reese, Angel's rebounding numbers really started to reach an elite level when Camilla finally came back from injury to start the season.
Right.
Just underrated. I'm super excited to watch her grow because you could see it starting to click for her as the season progressed. And I mean, I'm gonna be honest, Gamecock basketball fan, so I want to see what Camilla can do moving forward.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you there. So, just overall for all 5 of these rookies, they have been amazing. I think that this rookie class, obviously for this generation, is arguably one of the best rookie classes of this generation. Of course, we have other, classes. We can even create an episode talking about that, right?
Yeah.
But you could argue that this class in particular has definitely left a huge dent in this particular generation of fans. They're going to be remembered forever. I know Caitlin Clark is spearheading that, but they have been some amazing rookies. And even when Cameron Brink, before her injury, I just think that from a overall draft perspective, like this class has been amazing. And shout out to Kate Martin too. I know that she's on, the Aces. I know that she hasn't played, in the latter part of the season, but when she came in and, filled that void for Chelsea Gray, even though she's not playing Chelsea Gray's position, she filled that void early in the season and she was very, very productive. So, I got to give a shout out to this rookie class.
Yeah, Kate Martin definitely proves she is one of the 144, and that number is going up, thankfully.
Absolutely.
And you're right. We could do probably hours on this rookie class. Just truly incredible. And even more amazing than that is the talent we've got coming in these next couple classes too. So if you're not tuned into the W, I don't know what you're doing. Speaking of Kate Martin's aces, we got to talk MVP, unanimous, Asia Wilson. For someone to have accomplished everything that she has accomplished in her career and still find a way to take it to another level, how is that even possible? Please help me understand.
So you got to be a little bit psycho. Like all the greats are. Yep. All the greats are. And for Asia Wilson, she has recreated the definition of having to work 10 times harder to get half of what you can accomplish. This season to me was her Olivia Pope season. Papa Pope, and shout out to Coach Roscoe Wilson, and shout out to Eva Wilson. Love them to death. They're my hearts. They have instilled something in Asia that you only see in literally the greatest of all time athletes, in the greatest of all time people. And for Asia to do what she did this year, the first player in WNBA history to score 1,000 points, to lead in total rebounds, to lead the league in scoring, to be top 3 well, actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think she led in blocks. She was top 3 in steals. For her to put her team into a position where they were looking at the 6th seed at some point this year and move all the way up to a top 4 team. Only Asia Wilson could do what Asia Wilson did this season, and that's why she was unanimous as an MVP. And she says she wants to get even better next year. How?
Yeah, and I would not doubt her, but I would have a hard time understanding that myself. Except, we just saw it happen. We literally saw it happen. I just didn't think that there was another level because of how good look at how good she's been. Look at everything she's done. And someone somewhere thought that was the 4th most valuable player in the league last season.
Right.
And I think that clearly is over and done with. They have definitely seen the light. Just both ends of the court, like you're saying, just completely dominant and consistently dominant. To show up night in and night out and perform like Asia Wilson is not an easy task. Like, you'll see players who can do it a game, a couple of games, they'll have a good month, night in and night out, to the point, it's like I tweeted before it was even announced, like, You know how good you've got to be in a league with players like Nafisa Collier, Breonna
Right.
Stewart, Caitlin Clark, for the conversation to be, do these players even deserve a vote, a first place vote for MVP? That says it all. So whether or not she was unanimous, I wanted it for her, but to me, like, that's the best player in the league.
Right. Foregone
Best player in the
conclusion.
world.
And you know what also kind of strikes me as how I know Asia Wilson is and this is a euphemism. It's not a slight on Asia at all. When we say psycho, like that's literally what the goats are. Like
Yeah.
something in your brain is not wired correctly for you to do the amazing things that you're doing. I read the column that ESPNW posted on today, and it talked about how she is a stickler for escape rooms, and she's the leader. And if you have to be in an escape room, you want Asia Wilson to be in the escape room with you. She just has the knack, the ability to figure out and solve problems. She has the knack and the ability to lead a team. She has the knack and the ability to organize. And you saw that all season long. And then on top of that, she will lead you to the promised land by getting you out of that escape room. And I thought that was very exhilarating as I read that, because, again, that embodies what Asia Wilson has done all season long. That describes her to a T since high school. So for me, Asia Wilson is definitely, a player that has definitely redefined how you should look at a player like her, right? And for her to do what she did and for her to say she wants to do more, that just goes to show of her greatness. And she's only doing that, mind you, at 28 years old. This is like the beginning of her prime, literally. She hasn't even hit the apex of her prime. It's really, really hard to not, it's really hard to not like Asia Wilson. It truly is,
And to me, that's something that sets her apart even further, because we talked about you got to have a little screw loose, you got to be psycho. The players you think about when you consider that, like the Diana Taurasi's,
Yes.
I got Kobe behind me on the wall, the Michael Jordans. Well, I haven't heard this too much about Taurasi, but definitely Kobe and Jordan. They are a little off. They're obsessed. They're just the most competitive people in the world. But
Candace
also,
Parker,
yes. But there's also a little something where, like with Kobe and MJ in particular, maybe not the best teammates, not the most likable people to be around as a result of being a little bit off. Asia has it in that Aces team rallies around her and helps support her and will run through walls for her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You hit the nail right on the head. Because again, not only she is a great athlete, she is just one of the most amazing people you could ever meet. When I met her 2 years ago at her camp in Colombia, she has this aura about her. When she walks into a gym, what Charlie Wilson, not what Charlie Murphy said in that, when Rick James walks in, he has like this aura.
Yeah.
Like that is Asia Wilson.
A much deserved unanimous vote for Asia. Looking forward to seeing, like you were talking about, what the end looks like, what the peak looks like for her. I can't even imagine. I'm very excited about it. But we did have like a lot of other great seasons to talk about too. Nafisa Collier for the Lynx came in second in MVP voting. Breonna Stewart, Caitlin Clark, Alyssa Thomas, a host of others receiving votes. What stood out for you with the rest of the MVP voting?
So for me, because this was such a big kind of like gap, right? I know Nafisa Collier has had an incredible season. I think any other season, I think you could argue that Nafisa Collier was definitely most valuable player. But I didn't mind seeing Caitlin Clark getting some MVP votes because, again, we talked about it with her Rookie of the Year campaign. You kind of figured that was going to happen regardless, to be honest with you.
Yep.
Alyssa Thomas, obviously, having a quieter MVP season after having a historic run last year. But I also did know that Nneka Ogwumike, coming in, new team, she got some votes. I know that I talked about Defensive Player of the Year and MVP from a box score stats standpoint a couple months ago, where I pretty much use defensive statistical impact. And basically what that means is you take your combination from a stat standpoint of blocks, steals, defensive rebounding, and offensive rebounding to where you allow your team to gain more possessions. And you pretty much divide that by the amount of fouls that you commit. And it gives you basically a number. And, from that standpoint, I think that from a Defensive Player of the Year perspective, and I know we'll talk about that, Asia also stood out in that category. But going back to MVP, Nneka Ogwumike, I think that she was amazing for the Seattle Storm this year. Skylar Diggins-Smith was also amazing. So it just goes to show on the leadership that Nneka Ogwumike possessed as well. And, she deserved a lot of those MVP votes. So, it was a great season overall for MVP, but it was just hands down A'ja Wilson's gear. And, there was no way there was going to be any voters fatigue in this one. It was just too loud. She was way too historic this year for her not to win MVP. And for her to win it unanimously, that was just amazing.
Yeah, and to go back to Nneka, like just the model of consistency.
Absolutely.
Just feel like you can just pencil her in for like 19 and 10 every year.
Right.
Solid defense, elite defense as well. Just incredible. Just the length of her career, and she doesn't show any signs of slowing up.
Right.
So much deserved there. Is there anybody who did not receive an MVP vote? Obviously, the first place votes, we know those are spoken for. No argument there. Is there anyone else, though, who you would have seen maybe in that 2 through 5th place spot who you were like, they probably needed some MVP love as well?
I don't know, Brandon.
I got a name for you, and I want you to let me know if I'm crazy.
Yeah,
for thinking Kennedy Carter.
Oh man, listen, she was amazing this year.
I thought she'd get at least a little bit of love. 4th or 5th place, maybe she would have got him from me.
I wouldn't be I would not be upset if someone in the hometown somewhere who has a vote would vote for Kennedy Carter, because she has indeed been amazing this season. I think that from a continuity standpoint for Chicago, I think that was the perfect situation for her. Her numbers were loud. The way she played was loud. And she does deserve a lot of credit for her performance this year. So I can definitely agree with you on that one.
Every time I watched this guy play, I was just, at some point I should have stopped being shocked, but I wasn't. I was just stunned by how much he could do, from defending to getting the ball into the post to scoring. One of the fastest players, if not the fastest in the league. Mm-hmm. She was just amazing to watch. I'm glad that she found a home. We're going to talk more about this guy in a little bit, but man, just one of my favorite players to watch, I got to say.
Absolutely.
And I know you brought up the Defensive Player of the Year award. That went to Nafisa Collier. That was pretty close. 36 votes. Asia got 26. What were your thoughts? I know you just said you dove into the metrics. What were they telling you about the DPOY?
So from the metric standpoint, the DPOY statistically, to me would have went to, and if I had a vote, my vote would have gone to Asia Wilson. However, shout out to Nikias Duncan because he brought perspective to this actual debate in which Nafisa Collier, from a pick and roll coverage standpoint, was just head over heels better than anyone that was a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. And for her coverage, her numbers were louder than everyone else. So I had to respect that. And from a stats standpoint, again, Asia, she led in total defensive rebounding, maybe not average rebounds, total rebounds, but she led in that statistical category in rebounding. She led in blocks. She was third in steals. And for her to be 6'4.5", almost 6'5", for her to be third in steals, come on, that's like simply amazing. But again, diving deeper into the analytics of it, I understand why Nafisa Collier got Defensive Player of the Year, and she is definitely deserving of it. So I do not have an argument, for why she shouldn't have won it. But again, if I had a vote, I think I would have voted Asia, as Defensive Player of the Year. But we have to give credit where credit is due. Nafisa Collier was the best, was touted the best defensive player on the best defensive team. She also had a great defensive, so off the floor, Minnesota was slightly less better, but with her on the floor, they were much better. So you take that into consideration as well. And shout out to Atlanta Smith, her teammate, as well, who was, I believe, second team, or first or second team. No, she was second team all defense. So, I think that from that standpoint, Nafisa Collier definitely showed why, she was Defensive Player of the Year this year, the best defensive player on the best defensive team in the Minnesota Lynx, and she is very deserving of all of that.
1,000%. Like, you're right. I listened to Nikias when he was making the case for Nafisa too, and it was hard to decide who you're going to go with. And I'm curious how you look at it when it seemed like it came down to me, individual stats versus team defense, and how you're able to weigh how much help a player has in terms of team defense as well, and how you are able to split those hairs when you're looking at it and when you're evaluating defense. What are you looking for as far as defensive impact?
Yeah, so I look exactly what you just said. I look at defensive impact. And for me, I know that, again, sometimes defense can be labeled as more of a team thing, more of an effort thing. But again, I'm looking at the individual statistics of it, and it was just hard for me not to choose Asia Wilson this year. It was just very, very difficult. And because when you're looking at the eye test as well, because a lot of people, I think they negate the fact that the eye test is what got them analytics. Yes. Synergy has done an incredible job using film to break down statistical, analytical categories that would help with these metrics that's been created. Like, you have the VORP metric, you have the LeBron metric, you have all of these different metrics that are, pretty much categorized. And for me, again, when I'm looking at this and when I'm looking at the eye test, yeah, you see that Nafisa Collier is great from a defensive standpoint, but you feel Asia's presence a little more from an eye test standpoint. And that's how I evaluate it. And again, everybody has different perspective on how they evaluate statistics and how they evaluate what they see from a eye test standpoint. But if I was looking at it from that particular standpoint, defensive statistical impact, Asia graded at a 108. The second player and the third player who tied respectively was Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier at 92. So when you have a 16 basis point lead on the defensive player of the year, might I add, it's very, very hard to explain why if you're not incredibly sound like a Nekias Duncan. And again, shout out to him, because when he broke it down the way that he did, I said, you know what? God dog it. You are right. You are absolutely right. When you look at the pick and roll coverage, like it screams, like you look at the film again and you look at those pick and roll coverages, it screams it. Now that you know what you're looking at. If it's just, in hindsight and you're literally just out there for the vibes and not really watching, you're going to miss it. But when he explained that, and when I went back and I looked at a lot of those games, they were already a top 3 defense in the beginning of the season. They ended up being the number 1 defense at the end of the season. And you look at those games, you say, yep, that's it. That's it right there. Nafisa Collier, you cannot deny it. You can't deny it. So, again, Nafisa Collier, you definitely deserve all those things this year, and, continue to do your thing, and congratulations.
1,000% agree. And it is probably the hardest award to evaluate, because people don't really know what they're looking at. And you really have to dig into both the film and the stats and see if everything's being confirmed and all that fun stuff. And kind of along those lines, what is the difference in defensive impact between bigs and guards? Because I was kind of shocked to see Dejanay Carrington only get 1 vote.
And and shout out to my girl Tarika Foster Brasby, because she does not hesitate in giving everybody a glimpse on how she votes. I think the biggest difference is, I think a lot of people don't necessarily know what they're looking at. They see bigs, and the first thing they want to talk about is the blocks and the rebounds. But as a guard, it's incredibly difficult to win Defensive Player of the Year, because you are indeed a guard, because you would think about the steals, right? You would think about, you don't necessarily think about how hard it is to guard someone on the perimeter, right? Everything is a backline defense type of thing, because the moment the guard drives on a guard, that backline defense gets that help side block, that's louder, right? And Dejanay Carrington, in my opinion, did deserve a few votes, if you will, for Defensive Player of the Year, because if you look at the statistics from some of the most elite guards in this game, you would see that they shot sub 40, even sub 30% when guarded by Dejanay Carrington. And if we want to get very, very granular in statistics and in the eye test and how coverage is met, she and Dejanay Carrington was better in over the screen defense than under the screen defense this year, meaning she would take the over the screen and prevent a shot from falling or a shot from being attempted by one of the elite guards. Let's say a Kalia Copper. Let's say a Caitlin Clark. Let's say someone like a Rakia Jackson, if she was switched on her. Let's say someone like a Diana Taurasi. Let's say a Jackie Young and a Kelsey Plum. When she guarded those type of elite guards, they shot sub 40, sub 30%. And that's saying a lot for a guard. And she was also a great shot blocker as well as a guard.
As a guard.
So Dejanay Carrington definitely deserved a lot of praise. And I did not mind her getting a vote for Defensive Player of the Year this year.
Any thoughts on the all defensive teams? First team was Nafisa, Asia, Dejanay, Ezzy, Magbagor, and Stewie. Second team, Natasha Cloud, Jonquel Jones, NECA, Alana Smith, and Alyssa Thomas.
They got it right. There's no question that they got it right. I think this is probably the most perfect team. Like there is absolute zero argument for where each player land on first team and second team. Zero argument. So I think they got it right.
As hard as it is to evaluate defense, they did get that right. So shout out to the voters. Y'all do need to go ahead and give Kate out a vote, though. So Dejanay did come away with the most improved award. She got 28 votes to De'Erica Hamby's 18. Bridget Carlton got 15 votes. And then a handful of others got some votes as well. What is your philosophy when it comes to this award as a future voter? Can someone like a De'Erica Hamby, or last year we saw Satu Sabali, can someone who is kind of already an all-star win most improved player in your opinion?
I had some opinions about this, and I've changed my stance this season alone because of De'Erica Hamby. There is no criteria on how long you have to be in the league not to be most improved. So I always chalked it up to like, listen, we have 9-10 years skin in the game. Why do you need to be most improved? I've been saying that until this year. And my philosophy now is if you have improved, no matter how long it's been, no matter what, you should be considered for most improved. This year, in particular, Dejanay Carrington was definitely the most improved player of the year. We've seen the improvement from last year coming off the bench to this year being a starter and having the starter's stats that you would see in a guard. Not to say that she was a lead guard, but in a starting guard. She did everything that you could possibly do to improve in that category. And mind you, 6 knee surgeries since college. Tell me that's not something that you can consider from an improvement standpoint. And when you look at the whole idea of what most improved is, it is exactly what it says. You've improved the way that you've played the game from year to year. You could even argue that doggone Asia Wilson could have been most improved player.
We heard talk about Sabrina getting votes possibly.
And I'm gonna say something, Brandon, because shout out to Christina Williams, because Christina Williams had been an advocate for Sabrina Ionescu being most improved player, and it was proven. You can't deny it, but it was almost like she was like the only one kind of like talking about it, and a lot of people really tried to kind of brush it off. It's like, well, nah, I don't think so. But no, Sabrina Ionescu definitely had a very, very great year from an improvement standpoint. Her defense is much better. I called her a stone foot diva. She's improved her defense. She definitely has. And a lot of it is because she's finally healthy and she had a full off season to not just rehab. She had a full off season to train, because seasons prior, it was always a rehab, situation. So I just think that from that standpoint, she's just been incredible. But again, it was a no-brainer that Dejanay Carrington was most improved player. And I'm surprised that she didn't split votes with Ty Harris, former Gamecock, who was who improved, her season. Like they both, as guards, they both had done an incredible job, and you have to give credit to Stephanie White for putting them in that position. But Dejanay Carrington for sure is the most improved player, and you have to congratulate her for that.
Yeah, and just the way we've talked about the defense, but her offense was coming along too.
Absolutely.
And they lost so much on the perimeter. You mentioned Ty Harris also being moved into the starting lineup as well. I think where I land with it is De'Erica had been an all-star, 6th Woman of the Year, but it's different when you take on that role of number one on the opposing team scouting report. If you're stepping into a new role, a bigger role, and thriving in it the way that De'Erica did, you should be in the conversation for most improved, because we've seen players who have been really good at their role and get put into that number one spot and struggle. Everyone's not built for that. Personally, I was shocked that De'Erica did as well in that position as she did. So definitely shout out to the season she had. But, I mean, Dejanay, I don't think you can argue with it. But it is what it is. People certainly are. But it's just one of those conversations, because I thought Sabrina, she added to her game too. Absolutely. Like you're saying, like the stuff she's doing off of drives, you knew the playmaking was there from college, but seeing her really step in as the point guard for a lot of the Liberty's games with Courtney kind of trying to bring her along for the playoffs. She carried that team for the first part of the season when Stewie was trying to find her shot in her game. And she carried the team by implementing all these different things that she had picked up and worked on, like you said, when she had the time where she wasn't rehabbing. So I didn't think of anything as creative to describe her defense in the past as you did. But again, that's improved too. But it's just interesting to see the narratives on Twitter and how angry people get about the most improved player award and who does and doesn't qualify.
Yeah.
Because it's literally, like you said, it's most improved. Did you or did you not improve the most?
Yeah.
It's not most improved player who hasn't won something previously or hasn't been an all-star. Most improved, period.
Absolutely.
And then let's see. Moving on to Coach of the Year. Cheryl Reeve, Minnesota Lynx. Incredible season they had. I probably should talk more about Bridget Carlton with the most improved player vote. Kayla McBride received an MVP vote. Alana Smith. What are they doing in Minnesota? How were they able to rebuild so quickly?
Yeah, and Cheryl Reeves is just a great coach coming from the Bill Laimbeer tree. Shout out to the Detroit Shock. I know I'm rocking the Sacramento Monarchs right now. But I think that for Cheryl Reeve, like, she has just been incredible. And she was also executive of the year by acquiring Alana Smith and bringing in Courtney Williams in free agency. So, for her to revamp this team the way that she has and put this team in a position to where people did not have them at number 2. They just didn't. They were maybe a top 8 team, but they weren't a top 2 team. They were not. A lot of people did not have. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think I had them right sitting outside of top 4. I think they were sitting at 5 for me. But they have proved themselves to be the second seed. They've proved themselves to have an incredible year. They were the Commissioner's Cup champion. And they've given, in the regular season and the Commissioner's Cup, they've given New York a lot of problems, which New York was the best team in the league this year. So Cheryl Reeve is definitely very, very deserving of it and has a lot to do with the Minnesota Lynx success. Now, I would argue that Sandy Brondello did deserve a little bit more love for Coach of the Year because of what she was able to do with New York and how she was able to do it. Much respect to Coach Sandy Brondello for that. But it's obvious that Cheryl Reeve could easily be Coach of the Year because, again, a lot of experts did not have Minnesota at number 2 at the end of the season. It just wasn't happening. It wasn't. That's just the flat out truth. So for her to do that, I got to give credit to her.
So speaking of teams that overachieved, and yeah, shout out to everything the Lynx are doing. I think they look like a title team right now.
Absolutely.
But when I was planning this episode and the Coach of the Year discussion around it, I was prepared to come on here and try to make a case for Teresa Weatherspoon. And all of a sudden, she is no longer the coach of the Chicago Sky. I know you have thoughts about that because we talked about her in the draft preview, how excited we were to see her get an opportunity. That opportunity lasts a season in which she did overachieve with her roster. And I look back, I think they were picked bottom 2 by almost everybody I saw. She would have made the playoffs if not for injuries at the end.
Absolutely.
She's gone. What is going on in Chicago?
I don't have anything to say about the Chicago Sky organization right now. I'm still highly upset about what happened. And this is just raw emotion, Brandon, because for someone like Coach Teresa Weatherspoon, who has not only skin in the game, she is a legend in this game, a legend in 2 games. You don't just up and decide to want to get rid of Coach Teresa Weatherspoon without it being something that's beyond the scope of basketball that had went down in Chicago. I'm just going to be a flat out believer of that. There's no way. Coach Teresa Weatherspoon had the Chicago Sky in the 8th position the very last day of the season. Yes, it didn't go their way. But for you to come out with a statement and say we're here to compete for playoff and championships every year, that was just crazy. It was crazy. You mean to tell me with the roster that you've put together for Coach Teresa Weatherspoon to coach, she got the absolute most out of this roster with Elizabeth Williams going down early in the season, with Camila Cardoso being out the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season, for Camila Cardoso to come back, and for Angel Reese to go out the last 5 or 6 games of the season. You really, really mean to tell me in your heart that y'all were going to compete for a championship with the roster that you get out of here? That is just straight up baloney. It's buffoonery. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. It's asinine. I do not have anything left to say about that Chicago Sky organization. They are the ops to me. That's just raw emotion, Brandon.
I could not believe it because I read the statement the same way you did, and I was like, compete for a title this year? Like, everything you mentioned, Camilla being out to start the season, Elizabeth Williams going down, the Marina Mabry trade mid-season. Then at the end, when they're still in the fight for the playoffs, Angel goes down, and then Camilla and Kennedy both go down then too. And they were still in the fight, and they had good pieces, but the pieces didn't fit the way that they would have needed to fit to compete for a title or even a top 4 seed. Like, making the playoffs, they should have thrown a parade for that. I just can't wrap my head around what the decision-making process is to only give her a year, particularly when you see the love that the players have for her. Your star players, by the way, like Angel, Kennedy, Camilla, who should be your core moving forward, they all had great things to say about her, seemed to really love her as a coach. Now she's gone a year in. When those contracts are up, or Kennedy, she's a restricted free agent this year. Do you expect him to come back? Do you expect to draw in free agents?
Yeah. You're not going to draw free agents. They're not coming back. It is what it is. They are the ops. Not only to me, they're the ops to everybody else. Now we see why Gabby Williams said what she said. Now we see why Elena Delle Donne wanted out. Now we see why Sylvia Fowles wanted out. Like, that's just it. To me, I copped the Kalia Copper jersey before she requested out. I don't even know if I want to wear that jersey anymore. That's how upset I am.
I tell you what, I think Diana, she punched an evil spirit into that organization when she took that door down. Something happened. They need to get the people from The Conjuring out there or something, because I don't know what they got going on up there.
Yeah, it's just it's ridiculous, Brandon. Can we please talk the next subject, because I will go on another tangent, because I'm
absolutely,
that is my heart. Teaspoon is my heart.
Yeah.
Whether she's a coach or not, she's my heart. You know, I grew up learning her game defensively. You know, like, oh man, yeah. Can we? Yeah,
ridiculous.
It is
ridiculous.
It really is.
So before we finish up, I do want to get some playoff thoughts from you. Mm-hmm. I know this is going to drop Sunday, the new day. For everyone who doesn't know, this drops Sunday morning. So we will miss some action that happens on Friday. But what is your overall feel for how things have played out so far? What are your surprises? Is it going how you think? What is KDOT thinking about this year's postseason?
So everything is going exactly how I planned. I did say, and I spoke with Dexter Henry. Shout out to Dexter Henry of SNY and the New York Post. We talked about game one on Sunday. And I knew that New York was built to beat the Aces. So that was kind of like a foregone conclusion there. We know that from a competitive standpoint, the Aces aren't just going to back down. So, you know, being up 2-0 for the New York Liberty, that's really good for them, because now they can say, okay, we just need one in Vegas. We just need one in Vegas. What their idea is, we do not want this to come back to New York. So I think, in my opinion, they will be focused between game 3 and 4. I think that both of those games, if it happens to where New York loses in game 3, I think both of those games in Vegas are going to be close games. So I just think that New York's time is now, honestly, and you can see the fatigue factor coming in for the Aces. And I know everybody wants to see them three-peat, but at this point, it's like, it is what it is. 4 Olympians. Actually, 6 Olympians. 6 Olympians.
Yeah.
Let me correct that. 6 Olympians. And, you know, again, sometimes you just have to allow the sword to fall where it may. And I think the New York Liberty is they're just too solid, honed in, and focused on trying to get to the finals. And not only get to the finals and win the finals. Now, on the other side, I did speak with Dexter Henry after our segment, and I said, Connecticut is going to take game 1 or 2. I don't know which one, but they are going to take one in Minnesota. They are going to take one. And for them to be as close as they were in game 2, and for the game to kind of get away the way that it did, I don't see Minnesota, in my opinion, I don't see Minnesota winning a game in Connecticut. That's my surprise.
Ooh.
That's my surprise.
Spicy. I like that. That's bold.
Very bold. Very bold.
I was shocked because I wasn't the biggest Connecticut believer heading into the postseason. I feel like we've kind of seen the same story with them play out over and over the past however many years. But this does look like a slightly different team. The dynamic with Mabry coming and bringing some shooting. Obviously, Ty Harris, who we talked about, she's bringing some shooting as well, even though she's been injured. But this is a different Connecticut Sun team, it feels like. And, I mean, that series has been a lot of fun. Those teams don't like each other. They're getting after it. I love it. Yeah,
defense. Like, I mean, when and it's not necessarily a lid over the rim. They're just playing incredible defense.
Yes.
You know, and Marina Mabry has been a godsend for the Connecticut Sun, and for her shot creation, it's definitely going to help. I think in game 3, what's going to happen is I think that Connecticut is going to be so honed in and solid. And I really think that after the effects of game 2 and how Minnesota came out and how Minnesota in that second quarter pretty much punched Connecticut in the mouth, I think the same thing is going to happen. But on the other side is going to be the inverse. I think Connecticut is going to punch early. I think Marina Mabrey is going to figure out the quick doubles. She's going to get the ball out quicker. She's actually not going to have the ball in her hand. She's going to come off of more screens and do more catch and shoot. And Minnesota is just not going to be able to figure that out. And as a result of it, I think game 3 might be more of a 10-12 point win. But game 4 would be a closer win with Marina Mabrey, again, the shot creator that she is, making a play for DeWanna Bonner to win the game. That's what I'm thinking. So if this happens, Brandon, pull this clip up. So
absolutely. We already pulled the Fever one.
We did.
I think I pulled an Angel Reese one earlier this season. I called you Nostradamus. You got it. I'm a believer now. So let's take it a step further. Connecticut Sun, New York Liberty for the 2024 WNBA championship. Who you got?
New York is too honed in and focused. New York is just too honed in and focused, in my opinion. Breanna Stewart came out and said that there were some things that she was going through last year, and she felt like she let her team down. This was her first finals that she's ever lost. So she's focused. Jonquel Jones is healthy and focused. Sabrina Ionescu, healthy and focused. The X Factor, Benijah Laney Hamilton, locked in and focused. The X Factor in Leonie Febish, locked in and focused. Is just a gravity of just focused synergy and just composure from this New York Liberty team that I think that they're going to take it. And maybe it's in 5. We don't know. But I think that the New York Liberty finally takes it. And this will be the first major basketball championship in over 50 years if they are able to take it. And I can't say if I need to be at that. I need to be at that parade if it happens. I need to be at that parade.
We got to get you there. Someone please get KDOT there. I'm begging you.
Absolutely.
So now I'm going to call for the ISO. I'm going to clear out any place. There's so many different places to find you. Let the people know everything you got going on, where they can keep up with you, all that fun stuff. The floor is yours.
Hey, well, first off, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure having this conversation with you. We're locked in, literally like Jordan and Pippen. And if I want to put it on the women's side, we're locked in like Swing Cash and Deanna Nolan. So
throwback.
Shout out to the Detroit Shock for sure. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at k.luke3h. You can also find me on TikTok and on Instagram. Same thing at k.luke3h. Listen, I'm doing a lot of things, got a lot of things brewing up. I'm not gonna give it out too much, but you might see me somewhere tomorrow premiering on a bonus episode on someone's podcast. I don't know. You might see me the next day on a bonus podcast for someone's podcast. We don't know, but just continuing to produce. I got a lot of things that are in the works from a major standpoint. So hopefully that comes into fruition. But man, I want to give a shout out to the family over at the 9450. Shout out to DA. Shout out to Lauren. Shout out to Britt and Tay. Shout out to Corey. Shout out to Ray Ray. And also I know you said this was an ISO for myself, but I also want to give a shout out to everybody else in the WNBA space that are killing it. Christina Williams, Tarika Foster Brasby, Owen Pence, Miles Ehrlich, B. Terrell, Brandon Davis, the committee, No Cap Space. Who else am I missing? You, Brandon Silvers, it's so many, Rafiq Lewison. I know, I had a conversation with Rafiq today. It was so funny. Zachary Draves. It's so many people in this space. Pull up three, Tariq and Bryce, with the hoodie and headband, man. There's so many people that I listen to. There's so many people that I respect. I'm not just a reporter. Megan Hall,
Yes.
Misha Jones, Erica Ayala. Like, it's so many people, that I just, respect, within this game. And I just think that, from an overall community perspective, like, as long as we stick together as a community, we can all flourish in this space, and this space is going to grow even more. Whether, we're looking at the good side of things, whether we're looking at the bad side of things, we have to be transparent on everything. And as long as we can navigate and be mindful of how we approach everything within this landscape, within this space, and be respectful, the sky's the limit for everything that we have going on. So I do appreciate every last one of you who I spoke about. I appreciate what you do for this space, and continue to do what you're doing in this space. And let's just continue to be legendary and build together. Let's be iconic.
Amen. And kind of piggybacking off that, this man just named you how many people that you need to be, if you're a major network, breaking off dollars for to come on and talk WNBA. Stop having these same tired people who don't know what they're talking about on your TV screen yelling, perpetuating narratives at these press conferences, not knowing what kind of question to ask. Enough. There's enough talent out here. There's more than enough talent out here for you to go on and pay someone who actually is passionate about the game and knowledgeable about the game. That's all I got to say.
Mic drop. Yeah.
That was my Chicago Sky. Like, you thought the Chicago Sky, like that was my trigger right there. I was like, whew. Boy, some of the stuff I've seen, especially today.
Man,
My goodness.
let me tell you.
So that is a whole nother show. So we'll go ahead and wrap this one up, man. K-Dot. This has been the summer of K-Dot. I'm glad to see it. Proud of everything you are doing. Man, appreciate you coming on as always. And everyone else, appreciate y'all for tuning in. Do not forget to like, subscribe, rate, review, share. Check out my weekly Sports Watch guide. Drops every Thursday morning. That information is in the show notes. Man, that's it, man. I'll catch y'all later.